There was more power in her gentle heart than anyone could ever understand. What nobody knew was that her husband would make the cruel man shake with fear in a way that money and fame never could. Friends, if you believe in being kind, giving people second chances, and stories that show us the real strength people have inside them, please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, and subscribe to our channel, Kindness Corner. Your help lets us share these true emotional stories with the world. The woman's name was Clara. She was young, soft-spoken, and going to have a baby. Her work apron was tied carefully around her growing belly as she moved quietly through the fancy dinner hall. With cleaning gloves tucked into her belt and a tired smile, Clara worked many hours cleaning, serving food, and making sure the rich guests never saw how exhausted she really was. Every move she made was for the baby she was carrying and for the hope of giving her child a life without hunger and shame. Even though life had always been hard for her, Clara held her head high, her spirit strong despite all her troubles. On the other side of the hall was Adrian, the only son of the hotel's rich owner. Born with lots of money, grown up with everything he wanted, Adrian had never worked with his hands, never known what it was like to struggle, never learned to be humble. He wore his pride like fancy clothes, and his selfish attitude came as easily as breathing. The workers were afraid of him not because he was strong, but because he was mean. To Adrian, they didn't matter. They were just things meant to do what he wanted, people without names or lives that mattered. That afternoon, his loud laughter filled the room as he bragged about his power, drinking wine without care. But fate put Clara right in his way. Carrying a tray full of fancy glasses, she hurried past his chair. She stumbled just a little, and one tiny drop of wine spilled near his shirt sleeve. You could barely see it, but Adrienne's eyes got angry as if she had said something terrible about him. In the quiet that followed, he stood up, his face twisted with anger. People in the room gasped as Adrian, blinded by his arrogance, kicked out with his foot, hitting Clara right in her stomach. The delicate tray broke into pieces on the marble floor as she fell backward, her hands quickly moving to protect her unborn baby. The whole hall went silent. The rich guests, who usually laughed or cheered at Adrienne's behavior, now looked on in shock. Whispers spread like ripples in water. "She's having a baby. How could he do that?" Clara's face went white, her breathing quick and shallow, but she wouldn't cry. Instead, she pulled herself back up, shaking but not broken, her eyes bright with fear but also quiet strength. Adrian smirked, brushing his sleeve as if just being near her made him dirty. "People like you should know where you belong." His voice cut through the air, sharp and without mercy. But then, in the middle of the shocked silence, heavy footsteps rang through the hall. Everyone turned to look as a man walked in, his presence so powerful that even the fancy lights seemed less bright. His name was Marcus Hale, a decorated soldier who had just come back after years of fighting in wars far away. He was Clara's husband, the man who had fought battles most people couldn't even imagine, the man whose loyalty and honor were completely different from Adrienne's empty pride. Marcus looked at Clara, shaking and holding her belly, and something inside him broke. He no longer wore his war uniform, just a simple shirt and old boots. But his presence carried the weight of every battle he had lived through. Slowly, he walked toward Adrian, who suddenly found his arrogance starting to fall apart. The laughter that had once filled the hall was gone, replaced by a silence so heavy it felt like it could crush them. Without saying a word, Marcus stood between Adrian and Clara. He didn't raise his hand to fight, didn't yell, didn't ask for an apology. He simply looked into Adrienne's eyes with a mixture of pain and anger that only a man who had almost lost everything could have. That look was enough to make Adrienne step back, his fake confidence crumbling under the weight of truth. For the first time in his life, the millionaire's son felt tiny. Guests started whispering Marcus's name, now realizing who was standing in front of them. Stories of his bravery were well known. His sacrifices had been written about in newspapers, his heroism praised by important leaders. And here, the man Adrienne had thought of as nobody was the husband of the woman he had just hit. This discovery took away every bit of Adrienne's pride. Clara, though scared, put her hand on Marcus's arm, calming him down. She whispered softly that she and the baby were okay, though tears sparkled in her eyes. Marcus turned to face the room, his voice calm but firm. He talked about respect, about treating people like human beings, about how no amount of money or power made it okay to be cruel to people who couldn't fight back. He reminded them that real strength didn't come from being rich, but from being kind and protecting those who couldn't protect themselves. His words rang out like thunder, cutting through the shallow beauty of the fancy party, leaving guilt and deep thinking in everyone's minds. Adrienne, pale and shaking, couldn't look at Marcus. The man who had strutted around like a proud bird just minutes before now stood quiet, ashamed in front of a room full of people who once looked up to him. For the first time, he faced not wealth or social position, but the honest truth of his own weakness. In that silence, Clara's dignity shone brighter than any fancy light, her courage outshining all the gold and silk around her. From that day on, whispers about what happened spread across the city. The hotel's wealthy customers began to question what kind of person Adrienne really was, and even his father, a powerful millionaire, couldn't protect him from the shame. Clara, meanwhile, became a quiet symbol of strength, a reminder that the power of a humble heart could humble even the proudest bully. And Marcus, though he never wanted praise, became a living example of what it meant to be a protector, not through fighting, but through doing what was right. Sometimes the most powerful battles are not fought with weapons, but with truth. And sometimes the greatest wins come not from beating an enemy, but from opening the eyes of those who can't see because of their arrogance. Adrienne's pride had made him hurt an innocent person, but learning the truth about Clara's husband left him frozen, forever changed by the moment he understood how wrong his actions were. If this story touched your heart, please like this video, share it with others, and subscribe to Kindness Corner. Every click helps us spread stories of compassion, fairness, and humanity in a world that really needs them.